What's up, guys? I think about a week ago at this point, I'm not sure, I asked you guys, what is your most unpopular Skylanders opinion in the community tab? And you guys really think I wouldn't make a video about that? So, yeah, basically this video, I'm reading a couple of the unpopular opinions, we'll say they're actually popular, and I'll be reviewing them, seeing if I agree or disagree with them. So, let's do it right now. Okay, here, the first one says, the combat should have had a bigger focus as the series went on instead of gimmicks or platforming puzzles. I honestly don't know if I agree with this one or disagree with this opinion. I just thought that the combat always was kind of a second-hand thing to the platforming and gimmicks and stuff. Now, I do think that the bosses should have been better overall in Skylanders as well, because I do think the bosses kind of lacked in certain areas. But I think I agree with this opinion. I'm not sure if I disagree or agree. I think I'm gonna slightly lean on agree with this one. Spyro's Adventure has not really aged well. This one's come from Critical Crusher, and I know a lot of people probably won't agree with this, but I agree. You know, I'm gonna say it. I think Spyro's Adventure has aged kind of poorly, honestly, especially with the gimmick, as there really was no gimmick, and just later entries in the series with the gimmicks and stuff like that really just outclassed Spyro's Adventure. And also when it comes to the graphics, obviously, yeah, later games outclassed Spyro's Adventure. Spyro's Adventure had worse graphics and didn't have a gimmick. And that really hurts the game now because it's 10 years old now. 5 other Skylanders games that had gimmicks and better graphics. It's just every single year Spyro's Adventure gets older. It kind of gets harder and harder and harder for it, in my opinion, to compete with newer games in the series. Because games are obviously just getting better now, and I think a game like Spyro's Adventure just really hasn't aged particularly well. So yeah, I agree with this one. Alright, Drill Sergeant hate is ridiculously stupid. The rockets explode into mini rockets, do good damage, and reload speed is ungradable. I don't know. Drill Sergeant over Rollerball. I do agree Drill Sergeant over Rollerball. I just don't like Rollerball. I basically would agree with this one. I think a lot of people hate on Drill Sergeant. I personally think, while he's still, middle of the road, I don't think he deserves all the hate he gets. As I think, like I said, he's just middle of the road. He's not, an F-tier Skylander. He's not super bad. I just think that he kind of gets overhated, and I do think the mini rockets are cool. But definitely, his ability where he shoots something from the top of his head, isn't really that good. I still think his main, and his dash attack is also pretty good. So, I agree with this opinion. The vehicle sections and superchargers are some of the best parts in the game. Strongly disagree. I think the whole reason why superchargers is my least favorite Skylanders game is because of the vehicle sections in each and every level. You'll be playing a pretty good part of the level, and then it gets, boom, quashed by the vehicle section. Because most vehicle sections and superchargers are just one-lane roads where you go down one lane, and there's not a lot of intrigue into it. I can't really think of any vehicle sections right now that I actually like in Superchargers. There probably is some, but I really can't think of any right now off the top of my head, which is bad because there should be at least a couple vehicle sections that I actually do like. But I just can't think of any right now, which is pretty bad, like I said. I think a lot of the vehicle sections Superchargers are just one lane, do this, do that. I'm talking about land vehicles. Obviously with the air ones, there's more intrigue, and I actually think sea vehicle sections are the worst ones in the game, as they're just awkward to control and stuff like that. Disagree strongly. I actually find the 3DS version of Spyro's Adventure more enjoyable than the console version of Spyro's Adventure. Disagree completely. I mean, while I haven't played all of SSA on 3DS, I have played a good majority of it. And it would be and it's cool that you can jump. But the thing is, Hector comes into the levels and makes you have to finish the level in a certain amount of time, or else you won't be able to finish the level. What is that? I shouldn't have a guy chasing me the entire time to get the level finished. I should be able to explore the level as I want to. But no, Hector chases you through the levels that makes you have to go through the levels faster and stuff like that, and you don't get to explore everything, which sucks. Spyro's Adventure console doesn't do that, and also Spyro's Adventure as a game is just simply longer than the 3DS version. I disagree with this one. Sprocket is a good Skylander with a lot of combos. You guys know that I disagree with this one. I think her combos are pretty bad, honestly. Her tank is not that good and stuff like that. Sprocket overall has never really been a good Skylander and never will be a good Skylander, honestly. I don't really see, no matter what combos and stuff like that, what you can do. And even her best ability, in my opinion, which is drop a mine and throw it at someone still isn't that good. The Giants has some magic to it that no other game managed to replicate. If you mean like there's just like a certain nostalgic to Giants that no other game can replicate, I think I can agree with this. Despite Superchargers actually being my least favorite game, I actually think it has the most nostalgia. I have the most nostalgia for some reason. And Superchargers always just kind of has, like I said, like this person says, this magic that Superchargers no other game can really, like no other game, in my opinion, right, has like the same feeling that I play than when I play Superchargers, and I have no idea why that is. But if Giants is that game for you, then that's pretty good too. And even though Superchargers has that magic to it, it's still my least favorite game, objectively speaking. Swap Force easily had the coolest gimmick Skylanders. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. Series 2 Beyond Skylanders should have gotten a unique upgrade path. I agree. Honestly, though, I don't think there's any Skylanders that should have gotten above a Series 2, as I think Series variants are pretty dumb. And it's really stretching it if you're calling this a new Skylander after the third time you're making them and just giving them a WoW POW. Yeah, no. And then the last one is, if we got more Light Cores, Minis, and other gimmicks from each game, then we should have gotten more Giants and Swap Wars, especially with new elements being introduced in Trap Team. I disagree, as if we got more gimmick Skylanders like in Trap Team, like so let's say they brought back a Giant in Trap Team, it just would have been weird as you're trying to showcase these new gimmick landers while you're also bringing back old gimmick landers, which is why gimmick landers are only a one game thing. That's why you'll never see a Series 2 gimmick lander, and I think that's perfectly fine. So I disagree with this one. I wish Crosscrow was in Skylanders Imaginators to replace Tidepool or Kingpin or Buckshot. First of all, Buckshot was not in Imaginators. I think you. I guess I think you mean Graveclobber, and I disagree with this one as well, as I just don't really see how they could put Crosscrow in that game. I just don't think he'd fit, honestly, in that game. So I disagree with this one. Skylanders shouldn't be rebooted. The games we have are pretty darn good, so I mess it up with it. Besides, gimmick-wise, Activision cannot top Imagineers. I do think there is one particular gimmick that you can top Imagineers with that, and that is creating your own levels and stuff like that. And I disagree, as really any game can be rebooted. Like, a lot of people were saying that Spyro couldn't be rebooted because his old games were that good, but they're obviously wrong with that. And same for Crash. I think any game can be rebooted and be better than the original one, and I want to see it rebooted so we can get new games. I think at this point, the best way to bring back Skylanders is to reboot it and see how popular it actually is with, kids nowadays. Swap Force has the best music by far, and it's not even close. Disagree. Spyro's Adventure easily has the best music. Quicksilver of all, Treetop Terrorist, of Leviathan Lagoon, so many good ones. And I actually think Superchargers is second place. It's SA and Superchargers. So yeah, I disagree with this one. This one has a lot, so I'll go down by it one by one. Trap Team is good. Agree. Not that it's bad. Disagree. Zook is good on both paths. Disagree. Header Rush gets too much hate. Strongly disagree. Shipwreck Islands is underrated. Disagree. I think it's kind of overrated, actually. Swap Force levels aren't that long. Disagree. Well, I do think there are, actually, I'll go into more detail on this one. I do think there are a select few Swap Force levels that aren't as long as many. I still think that the vast majority of Swap Force levels, did I say Superchargers? I'm sorry, Swap Force levels are long. Giants is a bland idea. Agree. Drillbot is boring. I agree, actually, with this one. At least in SSA is boring, but in other games he's more fun to play as. And Rebel Rouser rocks and is 100 times better than Dumbstone. Well, I don't think really either of the Earth Swappers really hit it out of the park. Rebel Rouser easily is the worst swapper in my opinion, and it's not even close. Disagree with that one. Royal Brawl deserved a Supercharger. I could not see Chop Chop as it. IDK, I don't know, Skeleton Biter on stuff like that. And that's coming from a big fan of Chop Chop. I feel like when everyone wants to, try to back their opinion, they're always like, well, I'm actually a fan. Like, I'm a Steelers fan, and I still think that flag was bad. Stuff like that. But I disagree. I mean, Chop Chop is just the more iconic character. And they're bringing back iconic characters. And Rollerball just doesn't fit. You have Gilgrunt, you have Pop Fizz, you have Terrafin, you have Trigger Happy, you have Jet Vac. What? Who are the other ones? Trying to think of. Well, you have Eruptor. I mean, and then you have Roller Brawl. I don't know. You have Stealth Elf. That's another one. And then you have Roller Brawl, and it's like, Why? Every other Skylander that was in Superchargers that got a new thing, at least had at one point a Series 2, if not a Series 3. So I definitely believe that it should have been Chop Chop, as he just fits with the roster. Collecting figures is more fun than playing the games. Disagree. While you think collecting the figures is fun, the games are where it's at. I mean, you have to love the games. Vicarious Visions had better Skylanders designs than Toys for Bob, but worse gameplay. I think I agree with that one. I think that the Vicarious Skylanders designs are pretty decent. I just think that... Actually, I think I disagree with this one. I think Toys for Bob actually had better ones just because they had more games to show for it. But I do agree with the fact that they had worse gameplay. And then having two dev companies hurt the consistency of Skylanders. I do think I kind of agree with this one, as Swap Force and Superchargers have a completely different flow from... I think that SSA Giants and Trap Team all kind of have the same feeling to it, as where Imaginators is kind of off in the distance. I think that Superchargers and Swap Force definitely have a different feel to it, but I don't know if that necessarily hurts the consistency of it. Even though I do think Superchargers and Swap Force are the two worst Skylanders games. And by saying that, I should say the two least best, because I like every single Skylanders game. So I think I disagree partially with this one. Popfish shouldn't have been the returning Magic Supercharger. Agree. It should have been Spyro. 100% it should have been Spyro. I've said many times that I think Spyro isn't good, and I think he's overhyped, honestly. But it should have been Spyro. Come on. You have to put Spyro. And if not, do Voodoo, because Voodoo is an epic gamer. But yeah, no, it's 100, a billion, million% should have been Spyro. I prefer bad graphics in SSA and Giants, and Cinder's the best Skylander ever. Cinder's not the best Skylander ever, in my opinion. And I don't know why you prefer bad graphics as opposed to good graphics. I disagree with this one. A good amount of SSA Skylanders were not good. I think that the majority of SSA Skylanders aren't bad. However, I do think the majority of SSA Skylanders kind of find themselves in like this middle of the road type of Skylanders. I think that a lot of the SSA Skylanders find themselves, like I said, in that middle of the pack, just not bad, but not overly great either. So I guess I technically disagree with this one, but I do agree with the fact that I think a lot of SSA Skylanders kind of find themselves middle of the road. Turret sections and vehicle sections are not that bad. Well, I've already said the vehicle sections are pretty bad, but turret sections are 100% times worse. In every single game I've ever played, a turret section ruins the flow of the game. Swap Force is 1,000 times % better than Trap Team. Disagree. I think the gimmick is probably the better gimmick, but I just think overall levels are better in Trap Team. The consistency is better in Trap Team. I think the Skylanders are overall better in Trap Team. So I disagree. All dragons should fly. I guess I technically agree with this one, because it's just weird that some dragon Skylanders do fly and some don't. However, I don't like the flying ability at all, and I feel like it should be replaced with the third move, as flying just really is never that useful. But if they do give flying to some dragons, they should give it to all dragons. But I don't think any dragon should fly. I think every dragon should have a third ability, not flying. So I guess I disagree and agree with this statement. Swap Force has weird graphics. I actually agree. I know a lot of people say Swap Force has the best graphics. I think Superchargers has. But sometimes the graphics just really look like Play-Doh and plasticky. Kind of muddy, honestly. Still pretty good, though. But they kind of look muddy and Play-Doh, in my opinion. I like reposes. Disagree. Oh wait, last one I have to say I agree with that one. This one I disagree with. I think reposes are just very useless and just fill up roster space, honestly. And I actually like that Swap Force and Imaginators got rid of reposes. That's a Swap Force. I'm glad that Superchargers and Imaginators got rid of reposes. That's why I think Imaginators has the best roster, honestly, because it's all new Skylanders. So yeah, I disagree. I do not like reposes. I kind of wish the voice acting was slightly better. Now, I don't mean by different voice actors. I just mean like everything they said, I think, shouldn't sound like they're talking to 6-year-olds. Lol. I agree. I think especially in SSA, Hugh comes off as like very mentory, like always telling you what to do the entire time. Like, dude, I know what to do. You don't have to tell me the entire time. And I do think Flynn actually could have been funnier if he made more jokes, like not like his original jokes, as his original jokes are all just kind of him being narcissistic, which is funny. I think Flynn is very funny, but I think he could have been funnier. And especially with Callie, she's just boring. And I do agree that when they talk to you, they do kind of talk like they're kind of talking to a 6-year-old, but like most of the kids they're mostly made for 6-year-olds, so it's like, whatever. I think I agree with this one, though. Skylanders Imaginators creation system sucks, and the sensei should actually train Imaginators by fighting with them to increase HP levels instead of just placing them on the portal. Disagree completely. I think the creation system absolutely is amazing in Imaginators and one of the best ones I've seen. And if you had actually, would you have to play the senseis and the Imaginators at one time with this? I feel like it would just be too much a hassle to have to go and actually train with a sensei in Skylanders to do it. I think it's way better they can just give you the skill levels when you put them on the portal. Way easier. I think Battle Arenas and Giants and Trap Team are boring. I actually agree. I've never actually really been a fan of Battle Arenas, and I've always thought, like, these are just kind of boring, because you're just sitting by yourself, playing with one Skylander, and fighting waves and waves and waves of enemies over and over and over again. Which, in my opinion, isn't funny. In my opinion, isn't, like, fun. And this is probably because I don't like zombie games either. Like, I've never really enjoyed zombies and Call of Duty and stuff like that. I usually just don't really enjoy wave-based stuff, as I more often prefer single-player games where I'm playing against bots, or multiplayer games. So, yeah, I agree with this one. Imaginators is the worst game and gimmick due to limitations and the worst story. I don't know what the limitations are, as it's basically infinite how many Imaginators you can make. I think it's the best game. But I can agree it has the worst story. Imaginator's story is very wishy-washy, but it was obviously made for like really, really young kids, so I'll kind of let it slide, but I do agree that it has definitely the worst story. You're overrating the franchise. Come on. I disagree.